it's their therapy, just being outside, being in nature. We're on 10 acres, we're surrounded by evergreens. We have wild turkey, we have white-tailed deer, we have quail, we have the neighbor's dog sometimes. Um, we just have nature. We have mud, we have water, we have sunshine. Um, I myself found that teachers might be shocked by this, but I went all winter and then another whole winter without getting sick, which is just
Mm,
impossible in the school
hmm.
system because every
Yeah,
classroom is like a petri dish of
yeah,
this year's flu. Yeah, I just didn't get sick. Um, Having the sunshine and the fresh air, it works wonders. It's almost like we're supposed to spend more time outside.
Hi, this is Carl Rust, and I've worked in schools for over 30 years. I've learned a lot about how people learn, and I wrote a book called Get Out of the Way and Let Kids Learn: How We Can Transform Schools and Reintroduce Natural Learning. Well, I want to welcome Katie back again, and I'm asking her back because I neglected to ask her some things that I wanted to ask about nature. And then I gave one of my first talks about nature deficit disorder at a Unitarian Universalist church in Illinois, and I got to thinking about it afterwards, and I thought, you know what? We didn't really talk a lot about nature. We did, but not maybe not as much as we should have, because one of the things I found at doing the research on for that message I've been giving to different groups is that how important it is to get outdoors. um, so maybe we can get into that a little
Yeah, I'm ready for it. What questions have you got?
bit. Okay, great. So why do you think it's important for people to get outside and be in nature?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? That's like a whole book right there.
Yeah, it is.
Most of human history, we weren't indoors. Oh, there it is. That's amazing. One of many, I'm sure.
Yes.
People just feel better. Like some of our parents at the Spokane Learning Co-op, they say it's their therapy, just being outside, being in nature. We're on 10 acres, we're surrounded by evergreens. We have wild turkey, we have white-tailed deer, we have quail, we have the neighbor's dog sometimes. Um, we just have nature. We have mud, we have water, we have sunshine. Um, I myself found that teachers might be shocked by this, but I went all winter and then another whole winter without getting sick, which is just
Mm,
impossible in the school
hmm.
system because every
Yeah,
classroom is like a petri dish of
yeah,
this year's flu. Yeah, I just didn't get sick. Um, Having the sunshine and the fresh air, it works wonders. It's almost like we're supposed to spend more time outside.
yeah. One of my favorite picture books is called Outside In, or is it Inside Out? It's over there on the shelf. I might grab it, but
Okay.
it talks about how we used to be outside. That's how we used to live, people. And sometimes we think of history as being, the 20th century or something, but human beings have a long, long history before
Yes.
central heating and air conditioning and all those things. And we used to just be outdoors. It's
Yeah,
what
we
people
were.
used to do. And it's maybe ingrained in our genes.
Yeah, we were off grid for most of
Yeah,
human history.
most of human history. Um, so uh, it's interesting because one of the things that Mark Berman talks about in that book I was holding up, Nature and the Mind,
Yeah.
and he's um, psychologist that's interested in environmental psychology. So he looks at different environments and what effect they have on people. And one of the things he noticed is that there's a theory in psychology called restoration theory.
Mm,
And he talks about being two different kinds of attention. One is your directed attention, which is where you're trying to solve a problem or you're working on something specific, or maybe even if you're in school, trying to listen to the teacher. That takes directed attention. But we only have a limited amount of that. And I don't think I read it in his book, but I have a theory that maybe the younger you are, the less of that you have.
Yeah,
And
I've
then
heard similar things to that where like you shouldn't expect a child to pay attention to you for any longer than like their age in minutes.
that's a good one. Yeah, I've heard that too. But that you can restore that directed attention reservoir in different ways. One is sleeping, but it just being in nature, because in nature we have something they call soft fascination. So there's lots of stimuli, but it's not demanding our directed attention. So it's allowing us to replenish that attention. And I mean, it's not really my mission to try to make kids pay attention longer in school. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Right.
But it does kind of make sense that if you really wanted to do that, if you did 15 minutes of instruction and then went outside for 45 minutes, you might have a lot better. That sounds really crazy, probably, but
Sounds pretty nice. I would just, increase the outside time to 3 hours and the direct instruction time to, on demand if a child asks for it.
right. So, on that note, what do you think of the practice of taking recess away from kids for misbehaving?
I think it should be illegal. I think it should be straight up illegal to take recess away from kids for any reason. If there is such, if whatever is happening is so dangerous that the adult feels like they must withhold recess, and that's probably, taking recess away is not solving the problem. This is a much larger problem. Kids need recess. They need to be outside. They need the fresh air. They need the sunshine. They need to be able to move their bodies. They need to be able to engage in risky play. They need to be able to use their hands. They need to be able to speak. And by maintaining this attitude of a prison-like atmosphere as a punishment for normal childhood behavior is not solving the problem, but it's sending the message to the child that who they are as a human being is not acceptable, and we're going to keep you in this little cage until you can learn to stop being who you need to be to develop as a human being. I think that's the wrong message.
Well, and when I was assistant principal at elementary school, I finally convinced the principal that we should tell teachers that they could not take anyone's whole recess away. That's the best I could do. And what drove me a little crazy was usually the kids that were losing their recess were the ones that probably needed it the most
Hmm. Hmm.
because they were having trouble sitting still. They were having trouble um, not being, impulse control. I have a really funny thing I want to say. So I'm going to
Yeah.
say it right now in the middle of English class, and
Yep.
then I get my name on the board. You did your little article about the name on the board thing.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing was it was the same kids all the time. And one thing I used to try to tell teachers was if this was an effective um,
If it
treatment,
worked, if it
then you
worked, it
would not
doesn't
have the
work.
same kids standing on the wall every day.
Yep.
So anyway, that's interesting. But
Yeah, here in Washington State, it just became illegal last September. You cannot withhold recess from an elementary school
hmm,
student, and there's certain guidelines. It's not just you can never do it. There's guidelines where I think you can still do it. And I remember before that, before I opened up the co-op, when I was still working in the system, I went to one of our administrators begging her to please, can we talk about making this a school rule that teachers cannot take away recess? And she told me she can't do that because that's the only thing teachers have.
mhm.
Oh, no, it's not. That's
Well,
not the only thing.
no, it's not. And as you and I agree, and maybe other people don't quite see this yet, but part of the problem with school is you're making this artificial construction and you're trying to make this thing where kids are going to be engaged, and even the most well-meaning teachers are trying to create this thing so kids will be engaged when they don't want to be engaged. And then you have to have a whip, to go behind because if things were that interesting and that great, you wouldn't need to have a punishment to try to compel kids to do whatever it is you want them to do. They just want to do it because it'd
Yeah.
be so great and so much fun that they wouldn't be able to wait to get to that thing.
Yeah. And to add on that, it's not at the same time, I totally agree with what you just said. At the same time, it is an impossible ask to ask every teacher to be the most interesting
Hmm.
person in the room all day long, every single day. That's impossible. I think that's the value of self-directed education is it does not ask anybody to ever be the most interesting person in the room. It's sustainable in a way that teaching in the system simply is not.
Yeah, it's amazing when you do it, how I I know I hate to say this, but how dispensable you are. They don't really need, when I was doing my self-directed high ability class with third and fourth graders, they didn't really need me to be there a lot of the time. There were a few times it was probably handy that I was around, but there wasn't that often. And sometimes the value in that setting to have me there was just to run interference for them. It wasn't that they really needed me. It's that other adults might become, you know, uh, something would happen that they didn't like, and then I would have to try to. What my
Yep.
solution a lot was to go back to the group and say, somebody's complaining about XYZ. What should we do about that? But
Yeah,
um,
you're right. You're basically the liaison between holding space for the kids to be who they are and to develop normally, and all the worried adults around you who don't get it yet.
so
In
what
one
kind
of,
of, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, in one when I was teaching fourth grade, I was a fourth grade classroom teacher a few years ago, and I remember I was at the Arrow conference. I don't know if everyone's familiar with Arrow, the Alternative Education Resource Organization. I went to their conference in Portland, which was in 2019. And I described my job as not as a classroom teacher, but as someone who was just trying to hold space and protect children's natural development in the face of adults who didn't understand yet.
That's great.
I remember we would have Genius Hour once a week, and I kind of turned it into a self-directed education hour. And I would spend the entire hour just watching the door just in case the principal walked in, so I could leap up and explain whatever was happening in that moment in the most academic terms I could. That was my whole job that hour was to watch the door.
Yeah, that reminds me of I did a long-term sub position in sixth grade, and my job was to teach social studies, mostly to three different groups. And what I did a lot was stand by the door and try to see who was coming because I was trying to do it in a self-directed way. And sometimes it was kind of a little bit of madness. Of course, part of the problem with the public school is you've got a certain number of bodies in a contained space, and there's not really much flexibility. When I had my little third and fourth graders, I took them outside a lot, but the sixth graders, it was just a little more structured and there was just a little bit more. I didn't feel as free. Maybe it was partly my fault, but so a lot of it was standing by the door and watching to see who might be coming. Um, but that also makes me think, I wonder when you've got your kids outside, um, do do any of them do, do any of them not really like that and want to be indoors?
Well, I can speak about when I was a classroom teacher, what that experience was like versus, what it's like now at the
Hmm.
co-op. So the same fourth grade class, there was a holiday on a Friday along a weekend, whatever, and many teachers use this as an opportunity to show a movie. Like that's fun.
Right.
Everyone likes that. And I didn't do that. I took my kids back outside and gave them a 3-hour recess. It was magical. It was magical. It's like the first 15, 20 minutes is them just like it's like the first day of your vacation where you're just trying to like regulate yourself and calm down. And normally recess would be over at that point when really it's just begun. And it
Hmm.
was really interesting to see kind of what I see now at the co-op, where different people start doing different things and then they start coming together and going apart again and coming together and going apart again. Um, as they notice different things or interested in different things, they want to try different things. They get an idea to talk to somebody or to work with somebody who they normally never ever get the chance to. I got to see social groups disintegrate in a good way. What I mean by that is the cliques that I saw in the classroom got to loosen and in some cases disappear. And the straight A girls, I don't do grades, but you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Those girls who their identity is all about getting the right answer and they get their self-esteem from that versus the boys who are always in trouble but are pretty hilarious. I saw them come together for the first time and just play together. So that's what I saw when I gave them 3 hours of recess. And it's a little bit similar at the co-op, like when they are just free and nobody's trying to manage them or put them on some other agenda, they they learn social skills. They learn to figure things out. That's what I tell parents that the two most important or two biggest things that they learn at the co-op are social skills and how to figure stuff out because we're not interfering with their natural development.
That's excellent. So I bet you've seen a lot of kind of interesting experiments and projects and things going on at the co-op. I wonder if you could talk about any of that.
Oh, sure, sure. Well, just recently, what was it? A couple of Fridays ago, that's our teen group. We had 9 kids working together, which I think is the most we've ever had working together on one project. But they built kind of a play structure. They used some tree stumps and pallets to build this like a platform and more pallets as ladders. And then they just kept building to it. It was very secure, very sturdy. And then so that was on a Friday. And then the Tuesday kids saw, what's that? I'm like, oh, the Friday kids built it, right? We don't make them clean up because one group's stopping point is another group's starting point, right?
Hmm.
And so the next set of kids, they put some chairs on top and they called the bottom part the basement. And they started developing that more and adding to it. And then the Wednesday kids, what's that? And I'm like, well, this is what the Friday kids did, and this is what the Tuesday kids added. And so one of them, they got bricks and kind of formed a well and used part of a broken hula hoop to say that's the pipe and said, this is the plumbing. I built a well, and here's the plumbing coming into the house. That's cool. That's cool. And then there was another kid and then what was it? Yeah, that same day, Wednesday, there was another kid who hadn't been there the previous week. And so he sees this and he's inspired to build his own platform, right? So the same design with the tree stumps and the pallets and the ramps going up and a chair on top. And then there were like two of them and they were like close enough they could, have an easy conversation back and forth. But then they were checking out each other's houses and was cool. It was cool. And then I kind of built a little thing. Well, I didn't build it, but some of the other kids had put some tires together and a big piece of plywood on top. So it was kind of this springboard thing. So that
Hmm.
was fun for me personally.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. And when I was doing my third and fourth grade kids, one day somebody decided to start a business and they were going to make these little things and sell them. And then suddenly everybody was making things and they were trading back and forth. And it was just, and then, they just do that as long as it's interesting to them. And then it kind of goes away. But it's just,
Yeah,
it's really cool how natural that is. So, what would your advice be to conventional teachers that want to get outside more?
get
How could
outside
they do
more.
that?
Just open the door and walk out. Like it's really that easy. Um, there's always opportunities to take your kids outside, and you might need to wrap it up in academic language um, in order to placate the other adults who don't get it yet. I believe more in asking forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
Um, I've also taken a lot of improv classes where you have to think on your feet. So I recommend teachers do that too. It's helpful for when, your kids are having the time of their lives, but they're not, you know, doing whatever the admin thinks they should be doing in that moment. It makes me think of, again, this is my fourth grade class. They were all reading. This was during COVID when they weren't allowed to go to the library because we weren't sure how long the virus lived on books at the time, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I went around to each of my students and I asked them what kinds of books they liked because I was still allowed to go to the library. So I had hundreds of books in my classroom. I had more books in my classroom than any of the other teachers. It's cool. And so, yeah, we had reading time every day. If you're reading Calvin and Hobbes, that's great. You're reading. I don't care what you're reading, right? Choose whatever
Hmm.
you want. But it was astonishing because they were in this flow of reading and the classroom was silent. Everybody was reading. And the principal walks in and he sees what's happening. And he's like, put your books away. It's time for literacy. Because on my schedule it said, like, what?
Yeah.
You can't make this up.
No, it's crazy.
It's astonishing. But yeah,
Yeah.
teachers, open the door, walk outside.
Um, so when the weather's not so good, do you have lower attendance?
No, we've had several Wednesdays in a row when it's been pouring rain the entire time. And the kids are utterly unfazed by it. They are soaking wet. The parents told me how afterwards, like that seat of their car going home was just wet, right? Everyone knows to bring a change of clothes, sometimes two or three changes of clothes. We do have, a shelter, a covered area. You don't have to be out in the rain. And usually it's the adults who are sheltering from the weather, but the kids are, it's a bonus. It's a bonus when there's a lot of weather, whatever it is. They even like to talk about like, what's your favorite storm? Like, it's pretty cool. It's only we adults who have a problem with it. They don't.
And that's been my experience too. Um, so there's research that actually suggests that um, people benefit from pictures of nature, nature sounds, nature videos. Um, so would that be something that people could use if they, or is it better just to be out in the real thing?
Oh, it's absolutely better to be out in the real thing because then you can be surprised by it. Like I mentioned, we have turkey. Sometimes you hear a bunch of gobble, 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 and we're like, where is it? Because they're hiding in the trees. Or sometimes someone is like, look, a hawk overhead.
Hmm.
Could you imagine if I'm like, oh, I want to give them some bird sounds and I play on my phone. I'm like, oh, where's that hawk coming from? They'd be like, it's from your phone, right? Like it's not as magical.
Yeah.
I mean, if you absolutely can't take your class outside, some bird noises or storm noises are better than nothing.
When I was doing my third and fourth grade kids, we had the first thing they decided to do was extend recess because by the time we got outside, we were doing recess with the fourth grade. And by the time we got outside, um, and then by the time they blew the whistle to go back in, it was only 10 minutes. It was supposed to be 15, but then coming from the cafeteria to the playground, first of all, you had to be absolutely silent in the hallway. If anybody made noises, you were liable to be stopped, and everybody had to wait, stand there and wait. And by the time we got outside, and then we were supposed to have 15 minutes, but they would blow it 5 minutes early because they had to be back in class at a certain time. So they were taking into account the travel time to get back. So our group decided we want to go longer. And so we did that. And that got some raised eyebrows, when we stayed out and everybody else. But see, because we were high ability, I could kind of get away with some of that.
Yeah,
And then we decided to add a morning because there wasn't really anybody out that much in the mornings. We end up adding a morning time.
yeah.
But then I got an email from administration and they said, you can't have regular extra recess. So
Why?
I talked to the group and we kind of brainstormed, but I said, so I emailed back and said, we're going to do outdoor study time during these times.
Yeah.
And The other thing that was mentioned was when we stayed out, we were interfering with the sixth graders, even though some of my kids were playing soccer. And so I went to the sixth grade teachers and I said, "Are we bothering you because we're staying out longer? Does that bother you?" It wasn't bothering any of the teachers. So
Good.
it is kind of a problem, but I think you're right. You can find solutions to that. One of the things that I found interesting too was this idea of risky play
Hmm.
and how we get sometimes on the playground, teachers get so concerned about kids doing things like walking up the slide. Don't walk up the slide. You can't walk up the slide. Or standing on top of a some playground equipment. So, what have you experienced with like risky play, or what have you? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's something I talk to parents about, especially the first time that they come and visit us. The way I put it is it's safer for your kid to learn how to manage risk than it is for them to not learn how to manage risk. Life is risky, and that means learning how your body works and learning what you can do. We have a lot of straw bales around. These are like 8 foot by 4 foot by 3 foot. We have like one part of our adventure playground has kind of like boop, 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 and the kids make an obstacle course around it. And some kids are big enough and tall enough that it's easy for them to jump from one to the other. And the younger kids who can't quite do it, they see that and it inspires them to try again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And when they finally do it, we erupt in applause, right? It's so fun. Um, the thing I tell parents is that there's a difference between risky play and a hazard. We want the kids to engage in risky play so that they can develop their muscles and their sense of being in the world and develop their physical abilities. But if we see a true hazard, like if we see a child is going to fall from a great height or step on a nail, that kind of thing, like a true hazard where the child, you know, can't see the amount of danger they're so close to getting into, we do intervene. That's very rarely happens. Uh, we're on our second year and we're still not even halfway through our original box of Band-Aids. Like the
Hmm.
amount of actual injuries we've had is very, very low. Um,
Hmm.
which is amazing. And I think part of that is because when you trust kids to use their bodies, they have this sense of responsibility, right? Nobody's there to bubble wrap them or to like restrain them. They're able to actually develop their sense of what they can and cannot do. And when they hit that wall of what they cannot do, it's something that inspires them to go further. And nobody's telling them get down from there or stop or anything like that.
Yeah, the other thing that happens at school a lot is sticks are a problem. Kids can't pick up a stick. So sticks, pretty wonderful things, actually.
Kids love sticks. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I've been on field trips with when I was a classroom teacher. I've been on field trips outside and a boy finds a stick and that stick is like his best friend and he is in tears if you don't let him bring that stick along. There's something about sticks and kids. We actually have a kid curated museum at the co-op. We have a whole sh we have a cool rock collection, a cool bone collection, and a cool stick
Oh,
collection.
it's awesome.
How fun is that? Everyone loves a good stick.
Well, and actually, I was just reading in here. I just marked some pages because he talks about that in this book. Um, Kids' preferences for sticks and stones is that they have more affordance, meaning that the natural objects afford many different actions. We can pick up the stick, we can throw it, we can swing it, we can twirl it, we can dig with it. And artificial objects tend not to have as many affordances as they're made for particular uses.
Right.
But that was interesting. But
It
yeah,
makes
sticks
me think
are,
of Waldorf toys where they're not so defined. It leaves a lot of room for the imagination. It lends itself to open-ended play.
when you were talking about health, and the other thing I've been reading a lot about a lot of Facebook posts about, and I know it's because I've been posting about nature, and so now I'm getting this flood of things about nature and nature programs. And one of the things that was brought out that I think is kind of interesting is that playing outside in the dirt, you get all the good microbes, and as opposed to the bad microbes that you find a lot indoors. So that could be one reason you're so healthy.
So I got my original degree is in microbiology, and I remembered learning about that, how there are natural antibiotics, like not pharmaceuticals, but natural antibiotics in dirt. And there were experiments done with petri plates and dirt and microbes. And so it's fascinating. The dirt is our pharmacy. Nature is our pharmacy.
Have you seen any changes over time with people that come to your program, like how they are when they start compared to maybe when they've been there for a while?
Absolutely. With parents and kids alike, what I've seen is a growth in confidence. They become both parents and kids who are coming from a school system are used to being told what to do. And after so long at my co-op, where nobody is telling them what to do, and they know that they are free to move things around and rearrange things and create things and poke around and see what we got and kind of do what you want. It helps them to just calm down. There's like a calmness that kids and parents have after they've been with us for a while. Most families coming right from the school system, they're so wound up from the trauma of being overly controlled for so long. When that goes away, they can calm down. It's the deschooling process, basically, of just getting to return to who you are as a human being rather than as a managed, controlled subject of an institution that you didn't really wasn't working for you. I've also seen, I've had parents tell me that it's changed their parenting style, that their kids have become more resilient, that their kids are willing to stick with a difficulty for longer rather than immediately giving up. Parents have told me how it's helped them to like step back a little bit and see how much their kids can do before they rush in to rescue or to solve or to fix. I've had parents say that they love it here because they're just as much of our community as the kids are. We're mixed age, and that includes the adults who are there, right? They participate in our check-in circle exactly the same way that the kids do, no more, no less. I've had parents say that as soon as they got there, they just felt so welcome. And it really warms my heart to hear all of these things because that is the vision and the intention to be a real village where we're just glad you're there.
Talk about your welcoming circle a little bit. What does that look like?
So we don't do that with our little kids, like our kids under the age of 5. But our Wednesday and Friday groups, we have a check-in circle. We have a picnic table. It's a pretty big picnic table, and we all sit around it. Um, our Friday group is so large now that some kids are standing kind of in a second circle around it. We have a talking piece. It's a talk rock. It's about this big. Uh, Kids like to paint it, so it just changes colors from month to month. Um, and the rule is that if you have the talk rock, you can talk. And if you don't have the talk rock, then you're free to listen. So no matter what, you get to do something. So before we start, I ask the kids, what do you want to know about each other? What questions do you have? The younger kids tend to be like, what's your favorite color? What animal do you wish you could be? And the older kids tend to ask more complex questions, like if you could go anywhere, where would you go? Things like that. And I always start to kind of model. Sometimes there's 5 or 6 or 7 questions, and it's hard to keep them all straight. Like, what's your favorite tree and your favorite store and your favorite car and your favorite video game? Like, it could be a lot. But I say you only have to answer the questions you remember, and you're free to skip any question too. You don't have to. And then after I answer, I ask, I'm at the head of the table, so I say, which way should I go? And whichever side has the most enthusiasm or wants it the most. I pass the rock that way. And we just kind of like zigzag because there's people sitting down and people standing behind them because there's just so many people. And so we just go around and the kids answer and the parents answer. And, if someone can't remember the question, somebody's always there to help them out. So after everyone's gone, then I ask if there are any announcements. And then on Fridays, the families take turns bringing a snack to share for everybody. And so we give them the talk rock just to tell us what they brought. And then the kids are free.
How long does that take usually?
Um, Sometimes it's like 10, 15 minutes. Like our Wednesday group is smaller than our Friday group, so sometimes it's just like 5 minutes. Some of the kids like to have fun with the announcements by saying they have an announcement, and then once they have the talk rock, they say, "My announcement is I have no announcements."
Yeah, it's funny because I visited Conlara
Hmm.
in Ann Arbor, and they used to have a little learning community in Ypsilanti. I visited there. It's no longer there.
Mm.
And Tallgrass Sudbury in
Yeah.
Chicago. And I'm trying to think where else. When I went to the Aero Conference in New York, we went to a couple of different places. But that little meeting thing is pretty common to most
Hmm.
of these settings. And it's really interesting to be a part of. And when I went to Clonlara, I was a part of the morning meeting as a guest. And it's kind of interesting to do that. And I used to do that with the alternative program I ran and also the high ability. Um, and it's really interesting to watch kids. Slowly, they kind of take ownership of that. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And um, I've been talking, I did another little session on Zoom because there's some schools that are closing in this area, and I was trying to offer people some alternatives because the school system obviously is going to offer you an alternative, or that they don't look at it that way, but they're going to tell you what your option is, and which basically boils down to transportation. Where are they going to transport your kid
Yeah.
to continue their public school education? So it's trying to let people know that there are some other choices.
Good.
And even if you decide to go with that, you have some choices. Um, but one of the people that was there is a lady from this area that's interested in starting an outdoor program. And so uh, we talked about that a little bit, but I also mentioned that you are available as a resource. Um, so hopefully we'll see more of that,
Yeah. And I've
more
helped other
outdoors.
people. I've helped a school get started in Albuquerque, and then now I'm on their board.
Oh,
And no,
nice.
teachers reach out to me and parents reach out to me saying, I love what you're doing and I want to do it too. How do I do it?
Good. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Thank you very much. And hopefully I'll be out west sometime before
I
too
hope
long.
so. I hope so. Well, thank you so much for having me on again.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. This has been Get Out of the Way and Let Kids Learn podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe, follow, share, and leave a comment.